What if I told you I could build you a gaming and streaming PC for less than a scalped PlayStation 5? Too good to be true? How about I told you this machine could grow with you and your stream by changing out 2 simple parts, and it all starts with a good base? I'm going to show you all that on this video. Hello there viewers, Tyrone here, aka TyRizzleD, over on twitch.tv. I hope this year will be a nicer, a bit more chilled year for everyone after what's gone on. In my very first video on this channel with regards to PC hardware, upgrades, news and general streaming tips and tricks, I'm going to be showing you how to get the best value out of your hard-earned cash, or inheritance money, or stimulus check, or lottery win, but whatever. The whole point is I'm going to be showing you how you can start a very cheap and easy streaming rig and gaming rig for a reasonable cost of entry, definitely less than a scalped PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X. I'll be going over in reasonable detail the 5 main components that I would personally spend a little bit more time and effort on now, so that gives you a very good base for your streaming and gaming PC for the future. For your references, I will be leaving plenty of links down in the comment section below for the website that I use or any other resources that I am using. And I will also leave timestamps down on particular chapters so you can skip straight to the part that you are more interested in. It's the usual YouTube good stuff, you know what I'm saying? But before we get on with the video, guys, I want to ask you all one very simple question. And that is simply, how intimidating do you find working with PCs or PC components? It's something that I've always been curious, because I find it quite simple and easy, but I've been building PCs for over 15 years now, so I don't find it intimidating anymore. But for the new people out there, and the people who aren't as tech savvy, let me know in the comments below how intimidating you find building PCs or playing around with PC components. Without further ado, guys, let's jump right into the video. Right guys, before we begin, we need to get into a certain mindset when it comes to building a good streaming rig. Not quite a gaming rig, but a streaming rig, okay? So what I mean by this is, think of the most important people when it comes to streaming, and they are of course your viewers. Anything that you buy or anything that you do during the early days of your stream should be catered towards your viewing audience, not necessarily your own benefit. However, with the tech that we have these days and the options available to us, we should be able to build a very reasonable 1080p 60 fps machine for gaming that can also stream at 1080p 60 fps with little to no hassle, and you should be able to do it for relatively cheap as well. But it's just an important thing to highlight for you guys, because a lot of people don't realize that you don't need 144 plus frames per second if you're streaming, because your streamers don't see 144 frames. The max they see is 60, especially because a lot of viewers on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook gaming, the max refresh rate on their mobile devices, it tends to be 60 Hz, which is 60 frames. So we bear all that in mind when we build our PCs out. And I think it's something important to mention now, because once we get that mindset in nice and early, we will more than likely cater our build for that audience, which is 1080p 60 fps gaming, 1080p 60 fps streaming or recording, or whatever you plan on doing. So with that in mind, guys, we're going to be using a very easy to navigate website called the PC Part Picker. Now I'm using the UK version because I'm in merry old England. It is what it is. But this is also available in various countries across the world. I know it's definitely available in America. I believe it's available in Canada, but it's available everywhere. You can use it on mobiles, you can use it on desktop, tablets, whatever, you name it, and you can go and get it, which is dead good. So, as I said before, there are 5 main components that I like to start with, because these are the key components that are going to get you the base performance you need for a gaming or streaming rig. And the first thing that I actually start with, guys, believe it or not, is the motherboard. And I do that for 3 reasons, 3 very key reasons. The first one being is the motherboard is pretty much the hardest component in a PC to replace. Literally everything that gets connected in a PC goes through the motherboard. That includes power connectors, GPU, CPU, RAM, coolers, hard drives, you name it, it goes through the motherboard. So you want to get your motherboard correct early on to save you a massive headache upgrading later on. So that's the main reason. The other reason is that the motherboard also dictates what you can plug into it in terms of your CPU choice, in terms of upgrade cards like PCI cards, graphics cards, what type of hard drives you can use, such as M.2 drives, normal hard drives, solid state drives. You get the picture. So it's important that we get this right early on. So considering all those reasons, guys, I'm going to look for a reasonable price, and we're going to use the filter system over on the left hand side here. Nice and easy. And like I say, I want this to be cheaper than a scalped PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X, which go for about £600 in England at the moment. I don't know what that is. It's about 600 American, I believe, as well, but you'll have to convert for your own local currency, of course. So for a motherboard, I'm going to bring the price to well below £100 maximum, yeah? I'm also going to pick a very specific socket. I'm going to pick AM4 here. And I'll explain why in a little bit. And I'm also going to tick the ATX form factor here. That's another reason why, and we'll explain why. Motherboards come in various shapes and sizes, and the important thing for a streaming rig is upgradability and expandability. There's going to be less chance for you to be able to upgrade other cards in a motherboard when it's only got 2 slots, with one of them being taken up by a graphics card. So an ATX motherboard gives you I think it gives you at least 4 PCI slots, including the graphics card slot. So we're going to go with ATX. On top of that, we're going to order by price, and we're going to have a look down here, and we're going to look for certain chipsets. Luckily, none of the rubbish ones have turned up here, but I'm looking for at least a B450, B550, X470, or X570 motherboard, which you can filter down on the chipsets here. The 2 main ones I'm going to look for, though, are B450 and B550. They're the cheapest chipset you can use with AMD, which you can still upgrade reasonably well. And then based on this, guys, I'm just going to look at things like rating, memory slots, and have a look at what we've got available. So the very top one here, MSI B450, already looking like pretty much the exact kind of motherboard I'm looking for. So it's going to take AM4 socket, sorry, it's going to take AMD CPUs, which are going to be the best value for us for streaming at the moment. It comes with 4 memory slots, which will become important when you want to upgrade later on down the line. You see this little bit here is an M.2 slot, so we're going to be able to put in very small and efficient hard drives, which is going to be good for you. We've obviously got a PCIe slot there in silver, which is where your graphics card's going to be, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more expansion slots. Well, technically 4, because you won't be able to use this one with a graphics card. You've got 4 more other slots to use for upgrade cards. You're thinking capture cards, extra USB ports, professional sound cards, that kind of thing. They all go into these ports here, so it's important that we get the motherboard right. And I'm very happy with this one straight off the bat. MSI, really good brand name. The Ryzen 3000 desktop ready, as you can just about probably make out down the bottom there. Again, we're not going to be overclocking our streaming PC simply because it brings instability to your system, more likely to crash in the middle of a stream or a recording session, and you don't want that. You want this to be as stable as possible. So we've got our motherboard sorted nice and early. That leads nicely into the second most important part, which is quite clearly going to be the CPU. Again, when we're looking for a CPU with regards to streaming, we need to look for a very specific kind of CPU. CPU is in charge of running both your game and your stream at the same time. It's also in charge of things in the background like Spotify, any other recording software, any RGB lighting control software, all of your background tasks that you find in the bottom down here, for example. It's all ran through your CPU. So it's important to get one that's capable of running all of these things at once without compromising your streaming experience, and therefore compromising your viewers' streaming experience. With all that being said, any CPU within the past 4 or so years, 4, 3, 4, maybe even up to 5 years, will run any game at 1080p, 60 FPS, so long as the graphics card is able of doing that. What that means is we don't need the latest and greatest CPUs. We just don't, because they just cost a lot of money, they're overinflated in price, and they don't give you, your viewers, any extra benefit. This is why I'm highlighting this stuff now. So bearing that in mind, I'm going to leave all of these filters alone, except for a couple. I'm going to go down to the core count here, and when it comes to streaming, core count is king pretty much. Not because the cores necessarily offer you better gaming performance, but they offer you a more stable streaming experience. So I'd say I'd want at least 6 cores, at least for a streaming rig. So I'm going to put the core count down here to 6. Oops. And then I'm just going to click price, and I'm going to pretty much look for the cheapest 2 or 3 CPUs here. So as you can see, the cheapest one here is a Ryzen 5 1600 12nm, which is like the updated version of their very first CPU, Ryzen CPU that they released. You see it comes with 6 cores. The core clock and the boost clock for our application doesn't really matter, because this is going to be more than capable of running our games at our resolution, at our frame rate anyway. So that, to be honest with you, is pretty much for a starter, a perfect CPU. You can spend a little bit more if you want to get yourself a 2600. The performance between a 1600 and a 2600 isn't massive, to be honest with you. You're probably talking 5 to 10% performance difference. Again, it's like the difference between 90 FPS and 95 FPS. There's not much in it. I'd rather save the money here at the moment and put it elsewhere. And anything after this for a beginner streaming rig is pretty much overkill. So straight away, I'm happy with that CPU, so we're going to click that. And the good thing with this particular CPU is that it comes with a cooler included. So we don't have to worry about spending more of our budget on a CPU cooler. The ones that come with a bundled CPU, the coolers are more than capable of keeping them cool enough at max 100% load, basically. So there we are, guys. We've got 2 of our components already, and we've spent about 200, 193 with shipping. Alza. £15, you're joking. But anyway, next component that we need to have a look at for gaming performance is, of course, the video card. The video card has 2 functions in your streaming rig. The first obvious one is that it's going to render the games that you are playing. That's what a graphics card does. The second thing in our particular case is it's also going to encode your stream for you. So it's important that we get a GPU that is capable of encoding and playing games at the same time. And as I say, we are going for a 1080p 60 FPS experience for you and your viewers. So you'd be surprised what graphics cards we can kind of get away with here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to whack the price right down to around the £200 mark. And I'm also going to stick specifically to an Nvidia chipset. And I'll explain why once I tick the ones that I would personally go after. Where's your 16s? Where are they? We'll go down to video RAM. Where are you? There we go, memory. We'll put this to 4 gigabytes. 4 gigabytes of VRAM, your graphics card RAM, is probably the bare minimum I would expect to see in a streaming rig in this day and age. Anything less than that and you are going to slow down at 1080p, it's just fact. And you still need a little bit more space on your graphics card for your encoder to work as well. So you need at least 4 gigabytes. And I would pick the cheapest graphics card here of one of the newer chipsets. So you can see we've got a Radeon RX 560, terrible graphics card, run a mile. Don't even go anywhere near it for gaming or streaming or anything else, terrible. 1050 Ti, for absolute budget bare bones starting streaming rig, not too bad, because I've actually purchased and ran a 1050 Ti before, and it's more than capable of 1080p 60 FPS with settings dialed down, and you can use it to stream as well, so it is reasonable. But I'm looking at the prices here between the 1050 Ti and the 1650 for this very first one here, and there's not a lot in it, to be honest, guys. Between this top-end Asus model and this top-end between this Asus model here and the Asus Phoenix for the previous chipset, you're talking a £1 difference. For that pound difference, that 1650 is going to be about 20 to 25% better. So for me, this is probably the best bang for buck GPU when it comes to streaming that you're gonna be able to find for this price point at the moment. So I'm very happy with that particular model. So we're gonna add that there. Right, yeah, while we're here, guys, now we've got our Nvidia graphics card, and the reason why I go on about getting the Nvidia chipset so much is simply because the Nvidia graphics cards come with an Nvenc encoder. It's a dedicated section of the chip that is used for encoding videos, streams, recordings, etc. Now, Nvidia's encoder happens to be the best on the market at the moment, both in terms of quality and in terms of efficiency as well. So it gets you the best looking stream for a reasonable price, for the lowest bit rate, which will be important during your early days of streaming. That's why we pick an Nvidia chipset. AMD does have its own encoder, but it's far less efficient compared to Nvidia's, which means it's going to, the AMD one will run into frame rate issues more prominently. Your video output quality to your streamers or your viewers is going to be worse, and it's going to take far more power, which means generally AMD is unfavorable for a streaming centric gaming build. If it's just for a straight up gaming build, AMD have got some very good value options. I'm not bagging on AMD in any way here, but when it comes to streaming, Nvidia is king at the moment, and there's no other reasonable chipset out there that can come close to it. That's why we stuck with an Nvidia card. While I've got all your attention, guys, if you are enjoying this rather than brand new content style for me, please consider giving this channel a subscription. Also, I do stream over on twitch.tv at regular intervals on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays, all at 7 PM if you want to catch me over there live to ask me any questions, or just watch me fade in at playing a multitude of RPGs. Thanks very much. Rightio, guys, now that we've got the two main components and the backbone of the build sorted, we can start going over the couple of other things that I suggest for your build. Another one of my 5 key components. Luckily, this one's a lot easier to get right and understand, and it's the memory, or more specifically, the RAM. Now, RAM, when it comes to a streaming rig, is a very simple mantra to follow here, and that simply is more is always better. So, more RAM is better than faster RAM, okay? And it's a very easy one to follow here. Oh, also, 2 sticks of RAM will always beat 1 stick of RAM as well. It's for performance issues. Your CPU prefers to have 2 banks of RAM to use its workload efficiently. If you just get 1 big stick of 16GB RAM to then think of upgrading to another 16 gigs later on, the performance of your computer in general will tank. So you want to put at least 2 sticks of RAM in there if you're running a dual channel system, which most modern CPUs do. I'm not talking about Threadrippers and Xeon CPUs, of course. So this one's very easy to organize, guys. Just go down to the bottom on the modules and click 2x8GB, and then literally hit the price at the top and go from top to bottom for the fastest, for the cheapest. And as you can see here, guys, you've got loads of kits here. They're all 16 gigs. They're all dual channel, starting at £59, going down to 68 here. When it comes to RAM, again, you just want to go cheap and cheerful on this one. There is a slight caveat to me saying that capacity always beats speed. The slowest speed that I would say for a modern rig that you want to get is DDR4 3000 MHz, especially for a Ryzen CPU. Ryzen CPUs perform more efficiently with faster RAM. However, when you get above the likes of 3200 megahertz, you start getting exponentially more expensive. Whereas here, to go from 2800 to 3200 for pretty much the same capacity, you're talking £1.80, is it? About £1.80 difference. For the performance that you'll get, £1.80, I'm pretty much more than happy to spend that, to be honest with you. If you're going for a theme, you can get different coloured ones here, for example. You got Patriot Viper Steel, which is like a silver and black, but I know the motherboard we picked previously was red and black. So again, for the extra 16 pence, it might be worth picking the red kit here of G-Skill. So I'm happy with the price and how much we're getting there. So we'll click onto the RAM there, and job's a good one. It's happy days. Nice and easy. And then we come on to our last main component, the one that's vital to the, not so much the performance of your PC, but for its longevity and its upgradability later on. And that is the power supply. Now, this area, for some reason, when I speak to newer builders or less experienced builders, this is a place where a lot of builders skimp on. And I'm going to be the person who turns around and says that is probably the worst idea that you can have when it comes to building a new PC or upgrading. Your PCU literally gives power to all of your components. And a poor quality one here has a much higher chance of pretty much like being damaged or not working, or worse, frying or blowing. And when PSUs go, they usually take components with them, especially when they're poor quality. It's not to frighten anyone out there, it's not to scare anyone out there, but it's important to realize. Get high quality. So quality wise, I'm going to scroll down to the efficiency rating here, and I want at least an 80 plus gold rating. So we're going to 80 plus gold here straight off the bat. And then I need a minimum wattage as well. Here's the other reason why you don't want to skimp. At the moment, we're rocking 224 watts with all of our components. That's not including things like hard drives, case fans and whatnot. When you put those on top, you're probably looking at around 250 watts for this entire system. So you'd be thinking, well, you'd probably get away with like a 450 watt power supply. And you would if you had no interest in upgrading this rig. But again, as I alluded to earlier, I'm going to show you two parts to change out of this rig to turn it from a respectable and reasonable base streaming rig to an absolute monster later on. And we're going to need a little bit more headroom in the wattage to do that. So in terms of the wattage, I am going to put this up to at least 650, which for what we've got is way overkill. It's almost 3 times what we need. But again, I want the headroom for when we upgrade later on. And then as per usual, I'm just going to click the price there. And there's one other thing that I'm going to flick on here as well, guys. I'm going to go down to the ratings, and I'm going to pick 5 and 4-star ratings out of 5. So these ratings are done by people who have bought them, owned them, and given their own reviews on them. It's vitally important that you pick yourself a power supply that has got a good rating, both from viewers and as a review component itself. It's probably my biggest research component when I build new rigs. And straight away, the first one that I'm attracted to here is the Corsair TMX Gold. 650 watts, semi-modular, comes with 57 ratings. So over 50 people have taken the time to write a review on this, and it's 5-star for £80. Unfortunately, PSUs have gone up quite a lot in price. I remember probably about 2 years ago, you could pick yourself up a 1000 watt platinum power supply for about £140. Nowadays you'd be lucky to get that for 200. But yeah, this TMX Gold is something that looks very attracting to me. And then I've also seen just a bit further down, you've got another TMX Gold down here with a higher wattage rating for about £11 more. So I know 650 will be more than enough for this rig and the 2 new parts that I'm going to put into the rig at the end of this video to push this to the next level. If you want absolute headroom for things like overclocking and adding a lot more in terms of expansion and whatnot, it might be worth getting the 750. But for now, we'll stick with the 650. So again, we'll click on it like that. And as you go down here, there's plenty of reviews, all pretty much 5 or 4 stars, no issues. Quiet works well. Good power supply for the price. Great little PSU, everything I need. It's all good news. So we'll add that one. And as you can see, guys, there are your 5 main components that are vital, in my opinion, to a early streamer's rig. Gives you a lot of room for expandability later on. It gives you really good base performance from day one, especially for 1080p 60 FPS gaming and 1080p 60 FPS streaming or recording with the encoder. So that's already a very good base to start with. But unfortunately, this build isn't technically finished. So at this point, it gets a bit more subjective. The 2 other things that you absolutely need are a case and some storage. So I'm going to go to case here. And again, this part is a lot more subjective. If you want a really nice looking case with fancy RGB or extra controllers, extra USB 3 slots on the front and stuff, you will have to spend a little bit extra here. For me, I prefer cheap and cheerful. So I'm just going to literally do what I did with the ratings before. Mid-tabber, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5, order by price. But one thing I will suggest you do if you're going cheap and cheerful looking for a case, make sure the case comes with at least 2 fans. You want at least some type of input fan So it brings air into the case. You want at least one exhaust fan so it can take all that hot air out of the case, just for balance. If it comes with 2 intakes and no exhaust, just switch one of the fans to an exhaust before you start building. So there's plenty of cases here. All of these are pretty well rated. You got a 12 rated there for an aerocool site. What's a Clion? Looking at it though, I think it only comes with a nice fancy RGB strip, but it only comes with 1 fan. Again, if you buy a case that doesn't have fans, you will have to spend about £30 to £40 again just to put fans in it. So you may as well spend a little bit more now just to get some kind of fan and some kind of airflow through your system. I know that only comes with 1. I'll tell you what, we'll have a look at this one here. So straight away, this comes with a mesh front panel, 3 intakes and 1 exhaust, and they're RGB as well. I mean, I know I said I wouldn't go for bells and whistles RGB and whatnot. They are the good £50 packaged enough. Comes with 4 RGB fans, glass side panel. I mean, to be honest, I know a lot of people that'd be quite proud to put like £1,000 rig in that. It looks quite good. Plenty of airflow. I'm actually really impressed with that. $49.99. Okay, well there we go. But that's what I'm going to suggest for a case there. The important thing, as I say, is intake fans, exhaust fans, and you can tolerate the look of it basically. So that's a very good case, fam. I'm very happy with that. Very good case in general. And then the other thing that we need to look at again is storage, specifically operating system storage and games library storage or recording storage or whatever it may be. So for this one, as I alluded to before in the previous section on the motherboard comes with an M.2 slot. Now an M.2 slot is essentially where you can put in a dedicated solid state drive, and you can organize that with the filter down here by going to M.2 2280 there. And then in this drive, this is what I would put an operating system on, personally. I wouldn't use it as a game drive because these things are quite expensive for the storage that you get, but they are brilliant for putting your operating system on and your programs on, so your programs load very snappy, very quick. It also separates the drive from your game drive, which is going to be constantly accessed while you're playing to load up game levels, textures, all that good stuff. So in this case, I just go down to the capacity and I'd say 240 or above for a operating system drive and for most of your programs. I'd say that's probably the bare minimum you want to go in this day and age. And then I just order by price. And again, I look for the one that comes with the best kind of overall price to rating. So we've got an 8 there. Western Digital Green, 240 gig, which is more than enough for an operating system and your programs, launchers, all that good stuff. So I'm very happy with that, and it's only £28 as well, which is really good for 240 gig SSD, which is going to be super quick. And then so you've actually got enough space for all of your games or your recordings. Capacity in this case, we're just going to whack to about, I'd say for this one, again, it's a subjective thing. Pick how much storage that you need here. For a beginner rig, I think 1 terabyte's probably more than enough. And then just look for the one that's cheapest with the best ratings and has got at least a 7,200 RPM for the performance. So yeah, looking at all these here, 7 ratings, 4 out of 5 for Toshiba, or for an extra £1.49, I can get a Seagate Barracuda, which I know is a very reputable and solid quality hard drive maker. 5 out of star for 181 ratings as well. And yeah, it just seems perfect, to be honest. We'll add that. So there we are. So as it now stands, guys, this particular build now, in terms of the actual tower, is complete. And did we get it below? Oh, that shipping's killed me off. So we almost got it just below the £600 asking price of a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X, according to the scalpers anyway. Rightio guys, I promised you at the beginning of this video that I'd be able to change out 2 parts of this rig to turn it from the beginner's rig, the respectable, capable rig, to the envy of 99% of PC gamers out there, and most streamers as well. And it's 2 components that we're going to change, and it will completely change the kind of outlook of this rig. And I'll show you what they are. So go to your CPU for the first part and get rid of that one, the 1600. This is for people who are a couple of months in, they've got a bit more money to spend on upgrade somewhere, or their content creation has taken them to another level. You've been sponsored, you've got yourself subscribers, or you've got some extra income coming in. So for this one, guys, I'm going to go and put the price up this time. I want to go to about 200 to 400 pounds here. And the core count, I want a massive, much bigger core count, so I'm going to go 12 here. And the exact CPU I was looking for turns up. So we got the Ryzen 9 3900X. You've got two versions and 3900 XT. Now, at this point, if you're spending this much on a CPU, this is when you're bringing in mega bucks, because this thing alone costs about 2/3 of what the entire build cost last time. But a 3900 as an upgrade over the 1600 that we were using before, first of all, gives you double the cores. And as I alluded to before, cores are king when it comes to streaming. 12 cores is a ridiculous amount of cores, and will pretty much turn this into the ultimate streaming rig. You can run X264 encoding off this if you so wish, and game at the same time, and it probably still wouldn't break a sweat. It also does unlock more potential of your graphics card, because the IPC of this particular CPU is much higher than the 1600. So that's a very nice upgrade there. And again, it still comes with a cooler as well, so you can use the stock cooler, which I think is quite a fancy Wraith Prism, I believe, in these models. So it actually comes with a nice RGB fan on it as well, so it'll fit that lovely RGB case that we picked up before. So that goes from a basic CPU to the only CPU you pretty much ever need for a streaming rig. So that's pretty good. It also helps out with things like compiling your videos when you're making content. It helps things like Photoshop, DaVinci Resolve, After Effects. All those kinds of programs will run a lot smoother because they've got more CPU resources to use. And the only other thing that I'm going to change out of this, guys, is the video card, because again, at this point you want to give yourself a better experience. And I know exactly what chipset I'm going to look for at this particular moment, and that's an RTX 3070. I'm just going to click that straight away and I'm going to order it. Now you can see this thing's a beastly price, $549.99, considering the Founders Edition sold out within like 5 seconds. But anyway, so I'm going to go get a Zotac, because that's a very nice card. Now the upgrade from the 1650 to a 3070 is profound. First of all, you get that better encoder that I mentioned previously, where you can up the quality levels quite a bit more again. Second of all, you're getting a card that goes from 1080p 60 FPS gaming to 4K 90 FPS gaming. So you're talking almost 3 times the power, easily. Maybe even 4 times the power. Very, very capable graphics card, and I've alluded to in my streams previously, pretty much the ultimate streamer's card. More than capable of running any game at well over 144 FPS at 1440p, probably well over 200 FPS at 1080p, which again is the most common resolution for content creators and streamers to run their streams at. So we'll add that there. So we went from just over £600 to just under 1300, so we've doubled our price with 2 components. But again, the Zotac 3070, the RTX 3070 and the R9 3900X are for those who are making the difference from just a hobby and streaming for fun to someone who's taking this very seriously and is turning streaming into either a part-time job or a career. Same with content creation, they're going from the they're going from a beginner content creator to someone who is putting a lot more time and effort into their work. And that's just changing 2 components. And again, the reason why I picked the specific components in terms of the motherboard, the memory, the power supply, it means that they are 2 very easy drop-in upgrades. There's no extra fluff worried, there's no extra BIOS updates, there's no ripping out the motherboard to replace with anything else. You can literally drop these 2 new components in, reinstall your drivers on your graphics card, and you are good to go. 10-minute upgrade for both of them if you know what you're doing. And you go from a solid 7 out of 10 rig to 25 out of 10 rig, and a rig that will last you pretty much for the entirety of this socket's life, which is probably 5 or 6 years and no problem. Rightio guys, I hope that this little tutorial gives you a rough idea on how to allocate budget for your streaming or gaming rig. As I say, it's a nice start for those who still want a capable gaming rig but want to dabble into the world of streaming without thinking they have to spend thousands of pounds on a rig. Don't forget to give this video a like or a dislike down below. Throw your comments down below, let me know what you think of the video, of the content, of the style. I already know about the webcam, guys, just give us a couple of weeks to sort the video quality out and whatnot. Don't forget to smack that subscribe button for us if you found the content interesting in any way. And don't forget that I do stream over on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays at 7 PM Greenwich Mean Time, so convert that for your local area and whatnot. Just pop by and say hello, see why you come over. And obviously you can ask me any advice over there on anything PC related, where I'm a lot less awkward in person, and I'll give you an honest opinion on your current rig or how to upgrade it in any way that you see fit. Thank you all very much for your time, guys, and I will see you all in the next video.